Earnestly podcast coming to you on May 12th, 2022. Again, we're on our daily grind here. Like I said, how long will it last? We don't know. We'll see how that goes. Again, podcasts on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, you name it, Earnestly Podcast. Check out, of course, all the concepts as well on the podcast, of course. Take the Wrestling Podcast, which we're doing tonight, recording tonight for tomorrow. In the Paint, NBA, weekly podcast we do here. We'll be doing weekly until the end of the season. Of course, Football's Awesome, which you just did Football's Awesome episode early in the week. We're ranked all 16 AFC quarterbacks. That was a fantastic episode. Check it out on the feed. That's available. The rest retrospective, we'll probably get some of those in the can very soon. We did a couple episodes already out the gate last week. Probably get a couple more in the can soon. But of course, and then, what we do here, the normal interviews and conversations, and of course, now the daily thing we're doing here for the time being. How long we'll do it, we'll see. Like, I would like to do this podcast on a daily basis, and obviously, this is actually, a good format where we do, I'm able to touch on topics that I don't get to touch on if I don't do this daily. Things that are just like not very evergreen. So it's really cool to be able to attach that to talk about. Excuse me, can't talk today. To talk about things where I can sit and and react to it in the moment, because I have opinions on a lot of things, But when we did this back in 2016, 2017, at the time, and we did daily football a good year and a half, 2 years. Burnout happened because I was doing this plus the regular stuff, and I think once I had my second kid, my wife and I had our second kid in 2017, Logan. It got a little tougher. It got a little tougher to do this, commit to it, and then because again, I'll say it again. A lot of the work that goes into the show, especially for me, especially when it comes to doing a solo podcast, is mostly in the research. It's mostly in the preparing for it. And again, this is why I don't have time to write. This is why I don't have time to do other things outside that. Because once I'm off the air, I'm busy being a dad. I'm busy being a husband. I'm busy doing other things. And of course, other things that balance my life out, going, obviously working out and taking care of myself and, and I'll binge my TV shows I'm into and whatnot, which by the way, I'm trying to, set some time here to watch Winning Time, finish Winning Time. Winning Time just ended last week, for season 1 actually. I saw the pilot when it first came out and I loved it. I actually let the show go a little bit so I can just binge it one fell swoop. The problem is I don't have any time to do it. I may have to do it on Sunday before the playoff games. We'll see what happens. And also my wrestling content also watching has been kind of rough too as well because, like I said, I haven't just in 2022 alone, I haven't watched an episode of, I think I watched maybe 1 or 2 episodes of Dynamite, Raw, and SmackDown combined. Other than the pay-per-views, I haven't really been 100% into my wrestling content, honestly. And because I feel kind of bad. You host a weekly wrestling podcast, so you at least know what's going on. And I do for the most part know what's going on. But, again, this is the thing with wrestling. Obviously it never ends. And we saw that during the pandemic. It doesn't end. There's no off season. So sometimes you guys take a step away for a little bit and then come back later on or whatever. But, by the way, speaking of wrestling, shout out to my boys at 3CT. I just listened to their recent podcast. They just dropped a couple days ago. Which, by the way, I love the new format they're doing. The new format's fantastic. They record, all their shows and they, do a live show on Thursday. They put it out immediately and then they, do an evergreen episode show that released on Tuesdays. It's actually a great idea, but they, I came up. This show and myself came up in the conversation on a recent episode, and it was obviously talking about how many podcasts do I actually have and whatnot, because they were talking about Take 3 and whatnot. And I'll say it again. I do many concepts. Like I look at it as one whole thing. Look, I have a podcast, and all my shows I do are on this feed now. So I do have, obviously Earnestly podcast. There are other concepts within that. Like I'll do a weekly basketball show. Like as I said, I'll do a weekly wrestling show, and I'll do a, weekly football show when it's in season. So it's not as complicated as you think. Yes, there is a large volume of content that I do record a week. And right now, as we're in the NBA playoffs, my favorite time of year, I'm diving in heavy as possible. So I do record a lot of material. Like I said, I treat this like a job almost, because this is, while it's a hobby, it's also something I like to do as a career. So it's a side hustle, whatever. At the very least, I make some money on this thing a little bit. So I try to treat it as such. And And I do, and the thing is, I do not because I don't want to do. I do because I love doing it. I don't do it because for the money. I do because I love creating content, and as long as I have the energy to do it, and also have the mindset, and as long as I get away with the other things that are important in my life, I'm gonna continue doing it. I'm gonna continue doing it. So that's how I feel about that. So, but that was kind of fantastic. That how many podcasts do you do? Do you need? Do you work? Do you have a job? Dude, let me start right now. And I wish I can actually drop my 9 to 5, job and just do this for a living. If I can do this and replace that, if I can just even if I replace some of what I make on a daily basis to do this for a living, I'll be happy. But the reality is that's not the case. We're not there yet. We're still growing this thing. We're still growing this thing. But at the same time, I'm having fun doing it to the process. So I'm not gonna, So anyway, let's get to today's topics. Let's see what we got here on the docket today for today's show. Obviously, NBA playoffs, more game 5s last night. You guys want an allergy update? I'm feeling better today, actually. I'm every day I'm getting better and better. My eye's still a little glossy, but I think I'm 80% better now. I think by the time we get to the weekend, I'll be 100%. I've been taking my wife's advice, taking my pills, taking my allergy pills and whatnot, things I need to do to stay, taking my drops, so I'm, taking the wife's advice here. And it's funny, she's out of town. She's been out of town for a couple of days. She went on a girls' trip to go to Disney, as she does once in a while, which is fine. I can handle things here at home with the boys. So, but yeah, things get better. So there's another allergy update, of course. What else got on the docket today too? That's a game 5 last night. Bucks, Celtics, Warriors and Grizzlies. My thoughts on those games. Predictions for tonight's game 6 games. Sean Marks, Nets GM, speaks out, and I believe that it was speaking out on Kyrie Irving. Also, and this is why this name of today's show is called "Who's in the Club." We're going to break down Nick Wright's from Fox Sports. Nick Wright's superstar club list. This show might go longer the way this is going. I think this show might go like past 25 minutes. Honestly, the way we're going now, it is what it is. Netflix, of course, they are now, as we spoke about this a couple weeks ago, they are now going to be adding a ad tier for that's coming out sooner or later, and then other things of that nature. So, let's start first. Bucks Celtics last night. The Celtics should have won that game last night. Boston had that game under control for most of the way, up double digits a couple times in the second half. I thought we were going back to Milwaukee for game 6 with the Celtics up 3-2. And then Milwaukee showed their championship DNA last night. Drew Holiday showed his championship DNA last night. Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Greek Freak, the best player in basketball. Just for the record, in case you guys don't know that, he is the best player in basketball. This for the record. He showed out. Bucks take a 3-2 lead. What a game! What an ending too. Jason Tatum had a great game, but then he also got cold late in the game, missing shots and whatnot. The Bucks just they hung in there. Obviously, and I tweeted during the game last night. They are definitely missing Chris Middleton. They are definitely missing Chris Middleton. I mean, they need him. They need him. They need him bad. But he's not available right now because of injury. So Bucks now up 3-2 in the series. I had Bucks in 7 initially. I had Boston win last night. Bucks might win game 6, they win game 7. I think now the Bucks close it out in 6. I don't think they want to go back to Boston for game 7, especially now with Boston being able to figure out their defense, and how to play them. So I think the Bucks are going to put all the chips in the basket for game 6 on Friday night. I think the Bucks will likely win game 6. I'll have my first prediction on tomorrow's show, obviously. The Grizzlies, we thought, jumping sweep coming up for the Grizzlies, down 3-1, no John Morant. Grizzlies had a chance to win game 4, almost came close to win game 4 until, Steph Curry and company got hot late in the game, and the Grizzlies' inexperience showed out. Well, last night, oh my God. Last night, Grizzlies beat Golden State by 39 points. And guess what? Here's the funny thing, if you didn't watch the game last night. It wasn't even that close. It was actually worse than that. At one point, what I saw, because I started doing some chores in the house in the meantime. Golden State, Memphis had a 54-point lead at one point in that game. I think maybe in the third quarter. That game was never close. That game was done pretty much from the first quarter on. Memphis just couldn't miss. I think they made 18 3-pointers, maybe more than that. Easily a franchise record. What a performance. I hope they save some for game 6. I do think game 6, they're gonna. I think Golden State might win game 6, but wow, for one night, and it goes back down to, okay, you have that performance, and then game 4, what happened? and should have won Game 4. Memphis outside of Game 3 has been really good. I think quarter to quarter they've probably been at the very least drawn even with Golden State. You can argue probably better because this game alone, all 4 quarters they dominated. So quarter to quarter of the series, Memphis has have actually shown their own, and that's what won the superstar. Well, a good chunk of that. So obviously, I'm sure you're going to see in the media today. If not, you'll probably see it on if they win Game 6. Are the Grizzlies better without John Morant? And obviously there's a sample to use as an example because this year John Morant missed 2 stretches this year where I think he missed 25 games, and I think they went 22-3 without John Morant. We've been having this conversation on this podcast, on the Independent Podcast with me and Zach, and Zach even brought up again on this past week. Look, I still think you need a superstar to get over the hump. Is there something to the John Morant thing not being there that helps the Grizzlies? Maybe to some degree, but I think if you use an 82-game sample, I think they're still better with a superstar than not. I'm going to go ahead and lean on the fact that they're still better with John Morant than not with John Morant. A 25-game sample is a big sample to use. Certainly, these 2 games in the last, this series and John not being there has certainly helped the case if you're on that side of the argument. But at the same time, I still think you need that guy to get over the hump. This is not a knock on Ja either. You know what I mean? So, no, I think still need John Morant. So, Game 6 tomorrow night, Friday night. I'll have my predictions on that tomorrow's daily pod, if I continue to do the daily pods as I am. We'll see what happens there. Tonight's predictions on tonight's games. Heat, Sixers, Game 6. I'm going Philly to win Game 6. I pray I'm wrong, obviously. Diehard Heat fan here. If the Heat, this is what I will say about Miami. If Miami, because it's obviously on a national stage and people don't believe they're a finals team. And I see why. But this is what I think, perception-wise. If you're the Miami Heat and you don't like the way you're being respected by the national media and whatnot, you close the game out. You close the series out tonight. You don't wait till Game 7. You take the bull by the horn and you end this thing tonight in a rough environment. Joel Embiid obviously is banged up. He'll probably play the game tonight, but he's going to probably be a little tight today. I mean, back issue now, the thumb issue, obviously, and then his eye got re-injured on game 5. If you're Miami, you smell blood. You made the adjustments after Game 3 and 4. Kyle Lowry who's not helped this team in this series. You got Gabe Vincent and Caleb Martin, who's played very well, especially in Game 5. You now know what it takes to beat this team. Go for the throat tonight. You win Game 6, and you end the series in Philly. You know what I'm saying? So hopefully they do that. We'll see what happens. The other game, of course, I'm looking for Game 6 tonight. I keep saying New Orleans. I don't know why. Dallas and Phoenix. I think Dallas wins this game tonight. I know some people think that Phoenix will close it out, and maybe what we saw in Game 5 was pretty much the clue. But I don't know. Dallas is just a better team at home. They respond better at home. I think Luka goes off. I think the shooters that played well in Game 4 will go off tonight as well too. I think we get the 7th game. I think Phoenix win the series, but I think we're going to get the 7th game. Although my initial prediction in this series was Suns and 6. I do think we're going to get a 7th game out of this one. So looking forward tonight to some basketball. I'll probably record. I'll be obviously recording a podcast while the game's on, but I'm definitely not doing jack shit. Definitely not doing anything during the Heat and Sixers. All right, told everybody they might leave me alone. My phone will be off, and that's just that. Okay. Some more NBA news here. Nets general manager Sean Marks had a press conference yesterday, but the main thing that out of the press conference that I think people are talking about is comments he made about which we believe was towards Kyrie Irving. Here's a quote. Quote, I think we know what we're looking for. We're looking for guys that want to come in here, be part of something bigger than themselves, play selfless, play team basketball, and be available. That goes not only for Kyrie, but for everybody else here. When Marks was asked about all the Nets committed to Kyrie Irving long term, he says, quote, he has some decisions to make on his own. We're looking for guys that want to be something bigger than themselves, play team basketball, and be available. That goes to Kyrie and everybody here. Yeah. I should repeat that, actually, now I think about that. But that was actually in question to Kyrie Irving and whether or not he wants to play his status long term. Now he's due for another max at the end of next year. I've spoken on this topic actually. I think a few months ago when this whole thing with the mandates happened in New York, and I said, because the Nets were obviously not happy with how things were going with that, and that the Nets basically called off talks, I think, for him with an extension. And my thought was like, well, the Nets are putting their foot down and probably not going to sign him long term. And that statement. Now, the thing is, what you're going to get from most people, common sense wise, especially and especially when you look at the way things ended this year for the team, you're going to get probably a lot of agreement. Sean Marks isn't going to get a lot of agreement on that from most Nets fans, most people who support the team. The only thing that kind of is weird about that is, why would he come out and say that? Why would he come out and say something like that? I don't know. Is he setting the tone? Is there still frustration when the season ended? Probably. I mean, they spent a lot of money on this team, and you could even win a mumbling game in the series against the Boston Celtics. Okay, and a lot of the reason why the Nets lost this series to Boston was because of obviously Kyrie Irving's unavailability because of the mandates. Now, again, it's his choice. Again, I know people listen to the podcast say, well, it's a vaccine, his choice. I'm agreeing with you. It's his choice. But again, there are still consequences to the choices you make. You know what I mean? And just because he had a choice to not get the vaccine, which is his choice, of course, doesn't mean that they have to be okay with it either. He's not entitled to get paid. He's not entitled to get paid an extension. So I can totally understand Sean Marks' position here. In fact, I actually agree with Sean Marks here. I'm just worried and I'm curious about why would he put words to it publicly like this, unless he just wants to put it out there and pose a challenge to Kyrie Irving to do better next year and be available. This is why I've said, this is why Kyrie Irving is very frustrating to me too, especially because, coming out of the series against Boston, he's saying, I need to get better leadership, and we got to get this thing together, and we need to be leaders. Well, first off, Kyrie, I mean, it's funny you be saying that considering that, you don't even show up to work. Like, first and foremost, the first thing you need to be doing is show up to work. Before you can say anything about anything with doing with basketball and related matters, show up to work. First and foremost. Because a lot of the failures this year falls on you. It falls on you. So that's where I stand on that, honestly. So I agree with Sean Marks. I'm just curious about why he would say it publicly like this, but maybe, as I always tell everybody, and it's funny you said that. I was telling my dad today on the phone for a good while today, and I told him, one of the things about me, I think I've embraced more as I've gotten older, and it's something that my parents have taught me, my dad, and especially my mother, is honesty is the best policy. Transparency is the best thing to do. You know where he stands. At least for Sean Marks' case, he's not playing politics here. You know where he stands. And Kyrie does have a decision to make here. And he's doing the right thing here. Because, again, what Kyrie did hurt the team. You had a real low seeding as a result, and then you don't win a stinking game in the playoffs. So Sean Marks has a fantastic point, and he has a great point on that one. So we'll see how this plays until the summer, obviously, because I said Kyrie Irving can sign a big extension here, but it looks like there'll be some tension going forward between Kyrie and the front office. Obviously, Kevin Durant will have a lot to do with that too as well. So, all right, next topic here on the docket, I believe, is it the main event here? Yeah, I think it's the main event here. So Nick Wright, Fox Sports, host of Fox First Things First, host of What's Right. Also, I'm a fan of Nick Wright. I mean, a lot of people don't like him because he's a big hot take guy and all that, and I get that. I completely get that. But those kind of people don't bother me because I don't mind entertainment in my sports. I don't mind it. It's fine. It doesn't bother me. I think it's fine. So Nick Wright recently, he did his the Superstar Club, basically it's an NBA stars and guys who he believes are quote unquote superstars in the NBA currently. And his number he came up with was 12. He thinks he's identified 12 guys that are legitimate superstars in this league. Here's the list. I'm going to go through it now. So I bring it up here on my phone, and I'll tell you exactly what it is. So the 12 guys that make the official Nick Wright club superstar. Here it is. Giannis Antetokounmpo, obviously. LeBron James, Luka Doncic, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, CP3, Chris Paul, Joel Embiid, John Morant, Nikola Jokic, Jason Tatum, Kawhi Leonard, and Dame Lillard. Okay? Now, he did also add that he kicked out Anthony Davis out of his list, which I agree with for the record because you got to be available. And if Anthony Davis is available to play basketball, he's a top 5 player in discussion. He just can't stay healthy. Availability matters. You heard that, Kyrie? Just saying. Then he says, then he also has a waiting in line for someone to leave. 1 in, 1 out policy. He has 4 guys here who is at the doorstep of superstar, or having a superstar label, rather. He has Devin Booker, Trae Young, Jimmy Butler, rather, and the Ant-Man, of course, Anthony Edwards in Minnesota. Okay, so let's dissect this list real quick. Here's what I agree with here in the 12. I obviously agree with Giannis. Agree with Luke. I agree with LeBron, Luka, KD, Steph. I agree with Embiid. I agree with Jokic. I agree with Tatum. I still agree with Dame Lillard. He missed most of the year of this year. This is his first year. He actually missed a lot of time, but he was a star even before this year. So I'll go with Tatum. I'll go with Lillard, rather. Okay? Now, CP3 is interesting, too, because CP3 definitely one of the greatest point guards in history of the game. We had this argument about Chris Paul and his legacy on a lot in the paint. He's been playing, even at 37 years old, he's been playing some of the best basketball of his career. It's hard to take him out of the list here, but it's rough. John Morant, I think John Morant now, although him getting hurt in this series, and they still sort of thriving without him right now, does that ding him a little bit? I don't know. I think John Morant is coming. I think John Morant is definitely on the upswing. I would say 1 more year. Here's why I disagree with him definitely. Jimmy Butler's in that conversation now. Jimmy Butler's there now. Jimmy Butler has been, and I'm not even saying because I'm a Heat fan. I've been saying since his half year in Philadelphia that this is a guy that you may not like the guy. He might be a little, abrasive at times and definitely whatever it may be. But this guy shows up when you need him to show up. Remember the year where the Raptors won the title? The series, Philadelphia, second round series between the Sixers and the Raptors. And Kawhi hit the shot to win the series. They bounced around the rim. Philly had a great series for Philadelphia. Do you know who the best player in that series was? It wasn't Joel Embiid. It wasn't even Ben Simmons. It was Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler was the best player in that series. Jimmy Butler got a mass contract largely off that series too, especially. He goes to Miami next year. Okay, granted, it was the COVID year. They go to the finals. He has a fantastic series against the Lakers, and with a Heat team that took Lakers to 6 games without two of their best players. Bam Adebayo played 1 game in that series. Goran Dragic played 1 or 2 games in that series, and Jimmy Butler put the team on his back. This year, same thing too. You've seen this year in the playoffs. This year, balling 40-point games, 35-point games. Like, it's funny. You watch Butler play, you surprised he scores many points because he doesn't dominate the game. He's not like a scorer in that way, but he somehow is able to facilitate in a way and still be effective and still finally put 35 points in the game. Jimmy Butler is now a superstar now. Jimmy Butler, you're talking to a guy that for a good while, even up to this year, was on the fence about Jimmy Butler being a top 10 player. He's now a top 10 player now. Jimmy Butler's top 10, so he's definitely a star. I'll put John there because John had a fantastic year and has been up and up every year. So the only one I definitely push back on Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard, when healthy, obviously deserves being on this list, but he's missed almost 2 years of basketball now. So I can't just give Kawhi that pass anymore. He's missed so much basketball in the last couple of years that it's hard to if he's healthy, obviously, I would say Kawhi's in that list. Trae Young definitely hurt his stock this year. Not just in the playoffs, but this year in general. Devin Booker might be is definitely on the out and out on the border, definitely. I want Ant-Man. I'm a little on the fence on Ant-Man right now. I got to see more. I got to see a little more. But I like his list though for the most part. Like I said, Ja will leave there, obviously. Chris Paul, for the sake of respect for Chris Paul, what he's been doing, especially these playoffs, I'll leave Chris Paul there because honestly, Chris Paul has been balling at 37 years old. We gotta respect, So I'll roll with that. I'll roll with that. All right, let's see what else we got here on the to talk about here. Oh, some pro wrestling stuff real quick. Mainly, obviously off this off screen, but CM Punk and Eric Bischoff apparently are feuding something to that degree. Eric Bischoff obviously has his own podcast called Every Weeks, and Eric Bischoff is also very 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 honest and very transparent and very opinionated about the business itself. He's been very, to me, I don't think it is him being rough on AEW. I think Eric Bischoff is actually been very honest about AEW. So this is a tweet he put out, I think, a couple days ago. Yeah, a couple days ago. Talking about storytelling and the importance of storytelling in wrestling and why, and that, helps growth your company. Because one of the critical things, and I've been critical of AEW too, is that AEW, as much as I enjoy AEW, they do have a ceiling. And I feel like they create that ceiling for themselves because they create that ceiling. In other words, they don't what want to say? AEW does not they don't focus on storytelling in the way they should. They focus more on flippy flops and high risk moves. By the way, I have another opinion on that. I'll discuss another episode down the road. But here's what he said about in talking about storytelling. Better storytelling equals growth. If AEW ever wants to get the other 900 fans in the room, they'll need to stop booking for one small segment of the audience. He's not wrong there. Because he's saying the thing I've been saying for the last couple months now. And I'm saying as a guy who watches AEW on a weekly basis. He's correct on that. CM Punk decides to jump in this conversation here and tweet this. Quote, wrestling Twitter needs to stop amplifying all of the old head, bad faith, bad take, corny dipshits. They had their moment in the sun. Let them die in the dark with their ego podcast. Quote me. Seems kind of petty, defending his guy, Tony Khan. And I get that. You can do that all you want. So Bischoff responds and actually quote tweets at CM Punk saying, okay, so I'm not Hogan or Savage, Daniel Bryan, and Adam Cole. They're not the outsiders. I see the parallels, but this is totally different. I'll go ahead and say it, and people can quote me, and they'll be pissed off about it. But to me, this is bigger. Quote, unquote. How's that working out? CM Punk has not responded yet. And he probably didn't respond because he knows he's wrong. Because, again, at the end of the day, if AEW wants to have a chance to build a legacy even a quarter as big as WWE has done throughout the last 4 years under Vince's rule, they need to embrace storytelling. And for the record, the way their shows are formatted, they have the space to do it. They don't do pay-per-views every single month. Okay, they do the classic seasonal thing. One in February, one in May, one in August/September, one in November. The way I like it, it's spread out. They already got to blow the roster as is anyway too. So they have the space to do long-term storytelling. They do. You have the 2 hours of Dynamite on Wednesdays. You have the 1 hour Rampage. And you also have all the stuff you do on YouTube, the Dark Elevation, Dark, whatever what we call it on Take 3. Eric Bischoff is not wrong here. You may be mad about it, and you may like the corny old dipshit stuff. But here's the thing, though: if you're going to sustain an audience to watch your product, you need long-term storytelling. Because for me, anyway, who watches this stuff, flippy dippies are not enough for me to hold my attention. You're not holding my attention with these crazy matches. Yes, you have great matches, but it needs to make sense, though. Okay? You need storytelling. Storytelling is what hooks the fans. This is well known. This is history here. Like, everybody knows this. Like, come on. So, CM Punk, I know he's defending his guy and his company he's with now. He's the guy. But Eric Bischoff's not wrong here. He's not wrong at all. He's absolutely correct on this. Because AEW has not grown their audience. They've stagnated at, what, 1 million? 1.2 million at tops? And you can't keep relying on pops and appearances from people, we got a new debut here, another debut here. You can't keep relying on that to get ratings to increase. You get a pop for a week and that's it. Then back to 900,000 viewers a week, 800,000 viewers a week, because flippy dippies and crazy stunts are not enough to sustain that. I'm not saying you don't cater to your audience. You don't cater to the the audience that likes to wrestling for wrestling. You can do both. You can do both. But ultimately, if you want to grow your audience, you need better storytelling. You need long-term storytelling. And for the record, they've been doing that sometimes too. The CM Punk MJF feud was fantastic. That was what, 5 months of back and forth. I mean, hell, the vignettes they were doing were better than matches. The matches were actually really good too. So you have that there. So anything what Bischoff is saying here is not. It's actually the truth. It's the truth. So embrace it. Embrace constructive criticism here, guys. Seriously. Grow your audience. That's how you grow your audience. Anyway, Netflix. We discussed this a couple weeks ago on the podcast about how they lost 200,000 subscribers in first quarter. Expected to lose more for the second quarter of the quarterlies. And I spoke about how like they were going to be changing the business plan, business format. One of the things I discussed on here was that they're going to be doing ad tiers and whatnot, putting ads on their service. Well, apparently it's coming up early and realized that according to the article I read in Earnest yesterday, they're going to be adding ads to their service a lot sooner than you realize, as early as the end of this year. So, again, I don't know how it's going to work. I have no problem with them doing this only because it's for the sake of business. You got to make money somehow. But, I don't know. Netflix is in trouble. I don't know if this is going to be the thing that helps them. Because, again, to me, you need good content. They've had a head start this for years. And now every company is caught up with them now. I think my prediction is going to stay as I said. I think they are going to likely continue to fall and then fall to the point where then some other, whether it be Disney or any other major company, will buy them out. I don't see Netflix sustaining, because unless you have great material on there, and they relied on distribution for a long time. That's over now because now Disney has their own platform, so it's Peacock and everything else. They're odd man out. So I think Netflix will continue to fall. Stock price continue to fall. And then I think at some point, I don't know, whether next year or 5 years from now, they'll be at a point where like no one's going to care anymore, and then someone's going to buy it up. So that's what I think is going to happen. So anything else here before I go? Oh, I had a debate on Twitter a couple weeks ago about the kids and no kids debate. Somebody I saw the tweet. You know what? I'll say it for another podcast. I'm gonna go more in detail with that one, on the next episode. So I'll say it for next episode. Again, I like the Heat tonight. Oh no, I like the Sixers tonight in Game 6. Hopefully, I'm wrong. And I also like the Mavericks also tonight. Both home teams tonight to win their Game 6 games. I think that is it here. These are the two things I'm gonna say for the next episode. But yeah, anything else on top about here before I get going? Nathan Peterman's back in the NFL. Well, he's still in the NFL. I didn't realize he was still he was with the Vegas Raiders actually last year. Well, the Bears just signed a 1-year deal. Again, proof that as long as you stay out of trouble, you can get a job in this league. You know what I mean? My sitting trying to defend Colin Kaepernick here, but let's be real. We know Colin Kaepernick got blackballed. That is a fact. Even people who disagree with Colin Kaepernick will actually say that too. And another example is, as long as you keep your nose clean, as long as you don't shake up the system, as long as your problems don't your problems don't outweigh your ability, you'll be able to have a job in this league. Perfect example of that, Nathan Peterman. The Peterman's back in the league. Well, he's back. He's still playing football, so it doesn't matter. 1-year deal with the Bears today. I thought he left the NFL. I haven't seen this guy since Buffalo. I'm shocked. So, anyway, we'll talk soon. Play tomorrow. We'll see what happens here. Love you guys. Take care. I'm on Twitter at EgyptChristian7. Again, we're going to be dubbing Take 3 Wrestling tonight as well, too. Look out for that, if you're a wrestling fan, of course. Until then, also on Earnestly Media on the YouTube page. I mean, like I said, a lot of these shows been doing now. A lot of clips coming out there as well, too. So we will talk soon. Love you guys. Take care. And until the next one.